Okay, number 10, Lichfield Street Car Park Building Future Strategy. Staff rec.
You move it. I don't care, it's just moving on.
Second it.
It's only getting feedback.
Okay, I've got a mover and second day. Salmon Vic, move second. Okay, fire away, Bruce.
Well, seeing you've jumped in and stolen my thunder by moving seconding, I'll just go straight. I've got some questions beforehand, so I'll go to answer those and then subject to your major, seek other questions. So Councillor Hanson has asked several questions yesterday. Firstly, about the currency, the valuation, demand and ability to get a new estimate of value. Certainly, you don't need an updated valuation for the recommendation in front of you today, but if you did at a later side make other decisions, then you should get an updated valuation. So absolutely agree that that is needed. Secondly, Councillor Hanson asked about the cost, source of funding and gross income generated from the facility. I can advise that Lichfield Street Car Park was rebuilt at a cost of 30.9 million, and I will send this through in written form as well, so don't need to take the notes. There was no specific sum that came out of the insurance. It was part of the global settlement there, so we can't say there's a specific amount in there. And to calculate that total revenue since 2017, we just need a bit more time. We didn't have time to get that from getting this yesterday afternoon. There's a further question which I'll go back directly to him on because it needed some clarification there. Thirdly, Councillor Hanson has asked about the perception of anti-competitive consequences from when Wellington City Council sold its car parking buildings. So Wellington City Council sold its car parking buildings in 2003. They, at that time, said that they didn't regard owning and managing car parks as a core business, and they wanted to use the proposals either for debt repayment or strategic activities. So similar to what we're asking you to consider here today as one of the future options. Their sale attracted 21 tenders, which was quite good, and we were very happy if we got a market like that. So then in 2015, Commerce Commission considered an application for an operator seeking clearance to acquire leases of car parks that included two of those former Wellington City Council one. And the Commerce Commission approved that on the basis that the proposed acquisition would not have an effect of substantially lessening competition. So the Commerce Commission gets involved in these transactions and makes assessment. At a later stage, that operator acquired another lease of a building, and the Commerce Commission decided they didn't get clearance from the Commerce Commission beforehand, and that one the Commerce Commission thought did lessen competition, so they took enforceable or action on that, and the operator had to divest that lease. So look, based on that analysis, it doesn't appear to be a link between Wellington City Council selling the properties and a competition issue later on. It's certainly something that it would be good to hear views of the community about, and the process, if you decided at a later stage to recycle the capital, we'd need to be making sure our process took into account Commerce Commission matters. But I don't think just the mere sale causes that issue. And then Councillor Hanson's also asked, when was the car parking removed from Council's strategic assets list? About 10 years ago, and you can find the relevant decision in the minutes of the council meeting of the 23rd to 26th of June 2015. And finally, the question about why the tenants' rents were lower than market in 2023 and what steps have been taken to address that. So 2023, the tenants were still at the tail end of the hardship arrangements we put in place for COVID. We took the view, like many other landlords, that we wanted to keep the tenants rather than lose them. So we reduced the rent during that time. Since 2023, the rents have been lifted into a much more affordable situation that will So we're getting a higher rent, but it's still affordable for those tenants, so we're keeping them there. So that was the pre-questions answered, and I'm happy to answer any further ones that might come through.
We're saying that thank you for getting that together overnight.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So that's answered a number of questions. Sarah and Tyler.
Thanks so much. Just a couple of quick things. That's really useful information. When the engagement happens with the community seeking sort of feedback on what they think about the future use of it, will we put more of that kind of information in there so they get a really full sort of background and history, more, really good financial information?
Yeah.
What the impacts would be on debt and, repayments and interest.
Yeah, we haven't fully developed
Yeah.
that up. I don't want to spend too much time in it before you make a decision, but that's the type of thing that we would need to make sure that the public is fully informed.
And yes, potentially some other future projects which have a similar value, which could be paid for by that income if we did.
Yeah, I would propose that we treated that generically rather than specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first question was a serious one around the consultation and hoping that we could actually get some more detail on it. The next one is around the submissions themselves through the consultation. And if there are things that sit outside of the sale, don't sell part of the consultation document itself. So if there are other recommendations, do they get taken into account if we decided to hold on to the car park? So ideas from public around improving the infrastructure within the car park itself.
Yeah, look, if there was those kind of suggestions, we would be making sure that decision makers were aware, and then depending on which path you took, they could be taken into account if they were consistent with that path. But we'd note them if you took a different view. So absolutely.
Okay, and what's the timeline? Say, for example, we do the consultation, we go through the next steps. If the council decides to hold or sell, at what point in time is that decision going to be coming to us at the table?
We have to work through the detail of the consultation, but I suspect we would not want to be any later than August. Otherwise, you're getting too close to the election period, and then it will have to be considered through that basis.
We could come back with some timeline because we need to check with the engagement team and get the documentation. We could come back with timeline.
That'd be a funny election platform to roll on. Lichfield Carpark. The next question is around the market itself. I just feel like it's interesting timing based on the stadium not being built yet, and there we have potential to have capacity during when the stadium's built. And we're currently sitting around 70% last time I heard in the last briefing.
So a bit confused by the question, but I think you've got two parts. Is there a market for potential purchases? Yes, we believe that there is, with multiple players in it. Second thing, in terms of whether you'll get more usage associated with the stadium, potentially, but the figures that you're looking at and comparing against are already the high point of the peak. It's not what the occupancy is all the time. So you might get second peaks, maybe on a Friday or a Saturday evening for that, which certainly helps revenue, but not necessarily increasing the percentage usage.
And what I'm thinking is it helps both ways, because once we get into this, once the stadium is built, for example, then we have a more profitable asset to be able to think about moving on or holding. I'm just wondering about the timing. That's fine. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I was wondering what, if it's not really returning much of a commercial return, as you're saying, what would a purchaser do differently than what we're doing now?
Yeah, so potential things there could be looking at changing the mix between short and longer term car parks. So that they might decide that, for instance, as an example, 2 top floors are leased out and we're keeping the lower floors for supporting retail. So they could look at it from a revenue perspective, or they could look at it from a cost perspective. We have significant costs and things like security, etc. They may be able to reduce those costs in a different way through looking at synergies with other assets they might own, etc. So there's a couple of mechanisms that they could do there. There is a risk that you might want to think about in terms of they might increase the cost, but that's going to be a matter they'll look at the overall prices within the broader market, and we seem to be in about the middle of some of those prices, so there may not be that much room for them to move on that.
So what you're saying is there's room for council if we chose to make more return.
Yeah, some of those may be a little harder for us to make than others. So for instance, the security costs, we might decide that we don't want to reduce those. We might have a different profile of risk to others, and we might make that call. So it could be harder to reduce those costs.
Bruce, the return is stated at 3%. Do you have any idea what would be a reasonable return for a similar facility not owned by us in the private sector?
Look, I haven't done that analysis, but we would be, our cost of capital is 5%, so we would be looking for something north of 5%.
And Pauline, please.
Yes, I'm not sure if this was asked, but in the consultation document, would it outline any options of what to do with any income if it was sold?
I think that it would be premature, and that's really something that the council could consider, but we would say generically options such as pay down debt or use it instead of debt for capital projects. Those
Do something like that broadly.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, it wouldn't be do ABC project. We wouldn't do that.
should have some guidance on that, I think, in the document. Thank you.
And Mel.
Sorry, as if we were to look at selling, would the purchaser, would there be any encumbrances on it? Would they need to have it as a parking building, or could they turn it into something else?
Yeah, so that would be a matter for the council to give us the guidance on. You could look at encumbrances, but and that could protect things like, say, the mix of short-term versus long-term. But the more encumbrances you put on, the more it affects value. So there's a balancing act that would need to be done there.
So it would be a possibility it could become.
And that's, we would look at the results of the consultation, what the themes are, and if there's strong themes, it might be suggesting that you look at that, but realising and being fully informed that there are negatives of putting encumbrances on.
But if it comes back from consultation, it's up to us to decide whether it's or not. And one thing, I know it's not debate, but it doesn't matter, it's not really debate. I'm very pleased to see this here because when we're all doing the long-term plan stuff and we're putting the stickers on the wall, I think 90% of us said, let's look at getting rid of this. So thank you very much for bringing that here. That's great. Sarah's got a question.
I recall from when it opened that there were some initial discussions around whether to have flat floors or not, so that it would be convertible long term, but council decided not to do that. Is right. So it would be difficult to convert to something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Certainly. The design as it is now is really only suitable for a car park.
Okay, Christoph.
Yeah. So thank you for getting the answers to those questions. I see Wellington's actually council has actually started rebuying car parking buildings because of what they want to do in terms of removing on-street parking. Has there been any looking at that as well in terms of the like fitting into our strategic plans for the central city?
One, I'm not sure that we are slavish followers of Wellington, But secondly, I think you'll see in the policy section, there is quite a significant discussion of what the guidance that you as councillors already give us as staff. And your actions have followed along that line significantly, which is that you don't see that we should be investing further in car parking.
So if it does go up for community consultation, would there be anything in the consultation document that talked about the favourability or otherwise of potential buyers? I mean, we've seen what's happened in the past, and we've consulted on car parking with a certain operator, for example, where there has been an overwhelming negative sentiment. Is there anything that would be in the consultation document around that?
We would try and be extremely neutral about those matters. I think that's a very slippery slope to start to put moral judgments about particular operators and try and prejudge the community perception of those operators.
But someone that's been found guilty by the Commerce Commission of anti-competitive practices probably won't be something.
He's answered the question, Yanni, thank you. He's answered the question. It's a very thin end of a very long wedge, so we don't need to get down there too fast. Samuel.
At the risk of disrupting it, I actually kind of agree with Yanni in that, and I'm just thinking through some of those other experiences we've had, what would be quite useful, and we probably don't need a resolution, but something to take away is when the paper comes back, you know how when we did the last one, was it the Performing Arts Precinct 2 or 3 years ago, we sort of had some in PX and then it was all in PX and then some of it was in public, and that, I think we're probably sending a message that, we'd go through a public consultation and that we'd like to make decisions in public around this, given probably the points that Yanni's alluded to where we can. So don't need an answer, but I think it's pretty fair to say we want to do it in the public.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So the recommendation, the next stage is definitely in the public. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we've got a mover and seconder.
So the timing, Bruce, is there a hurry for this? I mean, isn't August a very tight timeframe? We're in June now.
We said we'd probably need some time
Yeah.
because we need to fit on with you.
See if they can do it.
Yeah.
But my question is there a rush for this?
I have to apologise because I haven't produced this as fast as you had asked me, so that's my apology to you on that. I think in terms of what we can do, and I'll work with the engagement team on that, we'll get a sensible timeframe together.
Excellent. Okay, so I'll put that motion, which is the staff recommendation. Okay. Oh, you want to do back? Yes.
Well, yeah, I think.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, that's what's bad. Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to vote against this going out for consultation. I am in favour at this stage, pending what the public have to say for the retain and change. I don't see any reason why we should allow Wilson's to get the uplift of small changes we can make to the revenue here. But really the revenue for the business atop the land isn't really what this is about. We've got a bit of land there with a book value of 50 million. And I think that owning that land allows us to move levers in the future, both for what this building becomes after it's a car park, but while it is a car park, for how much we want to charge for car parking. Do we want to incentivise single occupancy vehicles into the city? Maybe not. Maybe there are times over COVID where we do. But either which way, we have the ability to pull any of those and many other levers. So for those reasons and more, I think that retain and change is the way to go. I guess my big fear is that this is, the first asset sale of many over the next wee while. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate staff bringing this to us because that has been a request that came through some of the previous budget considerations, but I actually think the timing is just so wrong. Like, I don't know how we would go out for a meaningful public consultation with a 2023 valuation. We're in 2025, we're halfway through 2025, we've got a new stadium being built, we've got a new Metro Sports Centre about to open, we've had massive amounts of intensive residential development right within the CBD, right? Just walk around the central city and look at the number of apartments being built without any car parking or very minimal car parking. We've seen articles with a lack of commercial space and people wanting to do new commercial developments in the central city. So the city's got a really exciting future. People are investing, people are building. We've got some big projects. I don't understand how you could go out with an old value over 2 years old and consult the community because you've got outdated financial information. So, you know, to me, if you wanted to have this conversation, then actually you'd be better waiting for those other major projects to be complete, getting a revised valuation, and then going and talking to the community about it. Personally, I actually think the city should retain its car parking buildings. There's been a number of things that have happened in other cities where once you sell it off, the prices of the private operators goes up through the roof. Wellington, I actually think is a really good example, right? They want to remove on-street parking, but they recognise that that off-street parking is important to support some of those local businesses. And so they've actually sold off their car parking building and then had to buy it back at considerable cost, or some of it back, to provide car parking again in the central city. So as we see the city develop and become more intense, I think the logical thing is if we want to get people, remove on-street parking, which some of our street upgrades have done, then having off-street parking to support that, I think makes sense. The other concern I've got is that as a council, we don't own very much land in the central city anymore. We are fast becoming a tenant in our own city at considerable cost. If you want to look at some of the partnerships we've done around our civic building, for example, look at the increase in costs because we don't own the land and we don't own the building. So long term, I think it would be a real short-sighted decision to sell off this car parking building. We have existing contracts with private people to lease car parking when we've got our own car parking building that's under capacity. So let's find a smarter way to do it. So appreciate the work that staff have done on this. I don't agree with the timing. I won't be supporting this today. I think if you do want to do this, then actually wait for those other things to happen first, get an updated valuation, and then go and talk to the community and make sure that you talk about the risk of anti-competitive behaviour by a monopoly operator.
Yeah, you do it, you go right down to the last sheet.
That's your best work, isn't it?
This is just asking for views from the public and stakeholders. So, you know, I would have thought people would let that go through today. It's you know, no decisions being made. And two things, I guess. I was quite surprised about the asset sales comment because both Sarah and Phil were supportive of the Lichfield Street thing, so I'm not sure who that was angled at. But the other thing is, in terms of the valuations, they're a complete red herring on this stuff. We're not going out, no one in their right mind would go out and consult the public on a valuation of an asset when you try to consider the future of it. You would work through that through a procurement process. This isn't agreeing to a procurement process. This is agreeing to go and hear from the public
On what they're prepared.
on what they would like us to do with it. So, you know, this is like step one of what could be 10 steps in a process. We're simply going to hear the views of the public. So, you know, I'm not sure why we wouldn't support this today and hear what people think, unless I've missed something.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the option disadvantages reduction council's direct influence on parking fees. This is, I think, quite significant. I think sort of our best times are ahead in the city, and I think it's going to be a gold rush of people wanting to come into it. So the timing is poor, and I think as a council has made it really, really good. I think it was 3 minutes of all very good points, in fact. There's times we have needed to adjust parking during COVID. We've wanted to incentivise people coming in at different off-peak times and everything else. You don't have that control if you've, of course, got rid of it. The last time council consulted on something similar was around selling a parking building to a certain operator, and 219 out of 267 of those submissions were opposed to that. One, I think, really important point to make is right now we're trying to encourage the private sector to build more parking buildings because there's some spots where we need them. So there's less incentive to do that if there's a already existing building to buy up at that gold rush time of a city that's about to go absolutely gangbusters. So that will only disincentivize building more buildings because you can come buy ours instead. So the timing seems very, very poor. I don't see anything wrong with consulting, but why would we not do that in, say, a year or two's time when we know how well buildings are performing and what the city is looking like with new stadium online, more visitors coming and everything else. So absolutely nothing wrong with consulting the public, but the timing is poor, and we've also made decisions recently not to consult the public on certain things. Namely, the cathedral money, for example, we weren't comfortable with hearing what the public thinks about that. So I will not be supporting this today. Come back in a couple of years' time when we know how things are operating, and then go have a chat with the public.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat what Councillor Hinton and Councillor Moore are saying, but I want to add to it. And, you know, I think that the timing of the item would provide more benefit in line with the stadium being built, and showing future buyers the profitability, or showing council that it can provide more of a strategic financial return by upscaling customer experience. Many of the residents that I've heard, it's so funny, they go into town and they want to use Lichfield because it's got great rates, but there's no pay wave. They've got to get out of their car. There's only certain levels where they can pay for their parking, all of these things. But if you go to the competitors, it's a lot more accessible. It's a lot more easier to navigate. So I think we could tweak things up around the customer experience and actually encourage a lot of residents to go to our car parks. I do think our car park's a little bit outdated, just saying. But I do appreciate the staff, Bruce, coming to the table and giving us this item today. I do want to also add in the consultation document, if it passes today, that I'd love to see in the consultation market rates versus our rates. I think that would really help understand, or get the residents to understand exactly what that looks like. And also, obviously, as in every consultation document, we have advantages and disadvantages for the different options that we're going to put forward to them. The reason why I want to put market rates versus our rates is because I think that is the main thing that actually puts us aside from the other competitors. And I do use the competitors quite a lot, and I also use our ones. They're all great rates. They're all good and fine. It's more around accessibility and the ability to navigate around the city. And I think we've got a really good strategic asset where we are. Cheers.
Any more discussion, Aaron?
Yeah, I'll try and cover off something that other people haven't. Is the last time we did a car park consultation, we had 1/16 of 1% of the population submit. So making decisions based on such a small number of lobby groups is not always the best. So hopefully a number of people do feedback beyond just obviously the interested parties nearby. We hear from other people around the community as well. One concern is the pricing. The other one is, I don't, as a concerned ratepayer, I'm not a paid up member, but as a concerned ratepayer, I have serious concerns around selling it for whatever amount, because I know what this council will do. They'll just spend it on something else. So we sell something that actually gives us some income, not a lot, but it gives us some income, and then we'll blow it on something that'll win some awards. And this is down to 15 million per award now, which is good, but we've got 3. But it will win some awards, and we'll have something that's going to cost us a fortune. So I hope people submit and say, if you sell it, you only pay down debt. I'd like people to draw a line and send a really clear message to the council that don't spend it on other stuff, pay down some debt with that money. And,
the lobby groups.
But yeah, but I know how we like to spend, so I'm happy to eat my words in the future.
Anyone else like to contribute? Okay, so we're putting the staff recommendation, which is going out to consultation. Move to second, that's all done. Yeah, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Aye. Yep, thanks.
It's called. It's a really hard one.
So recommendations 1 to 4 on screen. Councillor Peters.
Yes.
Councillor Fields.
Yeah.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
No.
Councillor Coker.
No.
Councillor Donovan online.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Cotter. No. Councillor Henstock.
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
No.
Councillor Goff,
Yes.
Councillor Johansson, Councillor Kewen,
Yes.
Councillor MacDonald,
Yes.
Councillor Barber,
Yes.
Councillor McLennan,
No to jacking up CBD parking.
Councillor Scandra isn't here, the Mayor,
Just asking the residents what they think.
and Councillor Templeton.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That's carried. Thank you very much. Where have we got?